Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. And in this video, with the news that former Tory heavyweight Saijid Javid is the biggest name to announce that he'll be stepping down as an MP at the next election, I'm going to discuss the extent to which the Tories may have given up, as some are supposing, but also how in reality there is quite a lot for them to play for still. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So I was going to be discussing the latest Brexit news now. That can wait till tomorrow. The aftermath of the by-election result is now getting quite interesting, quite spectacular, from both a speculation and a strategic point of view. So late this morning, I think it was about 11 o'clock or something, Saijid Javid announced that he will step down at the next election. Some MPs have already done that. He's the latest in a bit of a flurry, but he is the biggest name to have done so. But whereas others, the other ones who are stepping down, are basically those who are all but certain to lose their seat anyway, Javid's seat is still forecast to be retained by the Tories, even with current polling. So this isn't a case of Javid jumping before voters push him, but genuinely for his own reasons. There are a lot of people describing this as particularly massive because it's an acknowledgement that the Tories think it's all over now. That's why he's stepping back. And it might be. It's entirely possible this is a case of Javid seeing that the Tories will definitely lose, so he's bowing out now. He really can't be bothered going on the opposition benches for the rest of his parliamentary career. I mean, yeah, if he stuck it out for long enough, he would presumably come back to power at some point, but maybe that's just going to take too long. But I don't think it can necessarily be seen as straightforward as that, because Javid, he was a huge figure in the party. He rose to become Chancellor under Boris Johnson. He twice took part in leadership contests, although came nowhere in either of them. But it wasn't long before Cummings eased him out when he did become Chancellor. So in the last if you really think about it, in the last 3 years, he spent about 13 months in the cabinet. After being Home Secretary and then Chancellor, he's been a backbencher for roughly a third of this current Parliament. Now that could just look like his political career's run out of steam. He's not currently a cabinet member. He hasn't been a cabinet member for 2/3 of the 3 years of this Parliament so far. He's not likely to be a cabinet member in the foreseeable future. So his resignation may be nothing more than the actions of someone who doesn't see further mileage in being an MP if he's not going to be in frontline politics. Unlike some of his colleagues, he's already very wealthy, he doesn't need the money, and with the capacity to continue to earn much larger sums outside of Parliament than he can as a backbench MP, it could be as simple as that. But the emphasis that people place on these announcements is not unfounded, because a general election campaign, it's a lot of hard work for candidates, and putting in effort for no or insufficient reward isn't generally anyone's idea of a good time. So when you see MPs announcing that they'll step down, it's certainly a sign that they don't think the effort is worthwhile. Some will be disillusioned with Parliament itself. That happens. Female MPs in particular stood down in really large numbers at the last election because of the excessively toxic atmosphere that was being fostered. And there'll be some of that again this year across the House. But feeling that your party's in for an arse kicking can also be a strong motivator to just bow out. For some of them, the appeal of being an MP is delivering change. Now, it's a matter of debate which MPs we think want to drive change for the better or for the worse, but they like the idea of being able to participate in the work of government. If you think about the role of an MP, they've got lots of different things they're supposed to do. Most MPs probably do most of them as well. But I think the thing that appeals most to people is that, the driving change, making life better for everyone else, or worse for everyone else. Again, it depends what sort of MP you are. But in opposition, you don't get to do that. And for some of these MPs, they've never known life on the other side. But almost like a hell of a lot of them were only elected for the first time in 2010 or later. I had a little tot up. Now, various commentators have talked of MPs considering their future employment prospects. Most of them do need to find jobs once they leave Parliament. It's possible that we're entering a period when a lot of Tory MPs may be spending more time now working out how they're going to earn a crust in 2025 than doing their jobs as MPs right now. But yeah, I had a little tot up. So by my count, it's about 81, might give or take one. About 81 current Tory MPs were elected for the first time before 2010. In other words, only about 81 Tory MPs have any experience of being on the opposition benches, apart from occasionally when they might lose the whip and then get it given back to them again. So that means over 3/4 of Tory MPs, it's nearly 4/5 really, have only ever known being on the government side of the house. So you can see how a lot of them wouldn't really fancy going through another election campaign, probably getting some very negative feedback at the doorstep, only to either lose their seat or take up their retained seat in opposition, where they'll be wasting almost every vote they cast and every word they utter. Of course, some could still find value in representing their constituents or shining a spotlight on some good cause or holding the new government to account in a select committee, of course. But when all you've known is being an MP for the party of government, you can see how a lot of them wouldn't fancy going through with it at all. And then, you know, as I say, there are just over 22% of Tory MPs who have experience being in opposition. You know, they do remember what it's like, and they may decide, well, they've done it once, they don't really fancy it again. They may also decide that it will take longer than they have to get back into government. You know, the MPs who were elected before 2010, you know, quite a lot of them tend to be getting on a bit. But all of that said, it isn't actually a completely hopeless situation for the Tories. In terms of the binary result of either being in government or in opposition after the next election, yes, it is. But if that's all Tory MPs were thinking, I think they'd probably call a general election now, or at the very least indicating their intention to do it in May. So why aren't they? Well, depending on the MP, there's probably 3 reasons why you would keep going. The first is the most selfish. If you're going to lose anyway, you may as well have another couple of years on the gravy train. I mean, there's a cost of living crisis. Hopefully the ride will still last long enough to at least get you through the recession. The second is that the government can spend that time getting more reforms in place. So even if you think your party's on for a loser, you still want to get things done. You know, you still want to achieve things. Granted, on past experience, the reforms that many of these MPs want are not helpful reforms. But the Tories don't see it like that. It's 2 more years to weaken and sell off the NHS. It's 2 more years to enrich their corporate contracts, get themselves a nice lucrative seat on a board of directors somewhere. 2 more years to try and find some scabby Brexit benefit. But then there's the third reason. The third reason is the long game. The third reason is for the MPs who wish to put their party at least ahead of themselves. They can help them to return to power more quickly than would otherwise be the case, because it's not binary. It's not a case of do they lose the election or not. It's how badly do they lose it, how quickly can they come back to government. If the Tories accept that they are very likely to lose the next election, then the strategy must be to achieve 2 aims. First, minimise the losses and therefore minimise the number of seats they need to regain in order to win power in the future. And second, make it more difficult for Labour to deliver in government. If Labour can be seen to be delivering, they're probably going to win the next election and the one after that. So to this end, they need to close the gap in the polls further. Right now, the Tories would almost certainly lose very badly. It doesn't look like it will improve much in 2023, because that is when we will be undoubtedly in recession. But maybe, just maybe, in 2024, they can try and come out of recession, claim that it's a result of sound fiscal policy. You know, it'll probably fool some voters. They can also run down public services so badly that Labour will struggle to deliver enough progress in the first parliament to win a resounding victory at the next election. And again, the fewer seats they lose and the fewer seats they need to regain, the easier it is to make progress at least in that following election. You know, the Tories know that the media will attack Labour for everything, like even things that they get right. Things that the Tories got wrong, they will suddenly label as abject failures. You know, where Labour deliver an improvement, the media will claim it costs too much. Where they don't deliver quick results, they'll say they're failing to get a grip. You know, I've seen it all before. The ideal situation for the Tories, realistically, is narrow the gap, try and keep the next Labour majority down to something manageable where even the odd Labour rebellion might cause trouble for Starmer, leave them with too much to do and not enough time or money to do it. That's what the play is for. And if the Tories could actually work together, would be a realistic aim. That being said, they don't necessarily look like they want to work together. The Brexiteers seem to want their insane policies put in place, even if it costs every seat at the next election. And the Johnson supporters are just rebels without a cause, really. You know, there are two massively impactful Brexit bills passing through Parliament at the moment. That'll spell trouble at Mill for Sunak with the Brexit crowd. And every poor polling result, or worse still, election result between now and 2024 will have the Johnson supporters sharpening their knives. The local elections could be very messy. All quite fascinating, really. But yeah, I do get that for some Tory MPs, it's all a bit much. They'd rather just get out of the madhouse. But anyway, there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.